Hey, looking to move or relocate to Kelowna, British Columbia, and you want to know the good, the bad, the ugly? Well, I moved here not just once, but twice. That's right, I moved across the country to live here, moved away for a couple of years, and something was calling me back. So I'm going to give you my list of 5 pros and cons I think everyone that is relocating to this area must know. So let's check it out. Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Boholij with Century 21 Executives Realty and the Welcome Home team. And if you're new to my channel and you want to know everything there is to live, eat, sleep, play in Kelowna, British Columbia, well, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get notified as soon as I post my next video. We are getting a ton of people every single day emailing, texting, calling us about moving to this area, and we absolutely love it. So if you're even thinking about moving or relocating to Kelowna, British Columbia, the Okanagan Valley in general, you got to reach out to me. My number information's on the screen right now. Give me a call, email, text, days, nights, weekends, 7 days a week. I got your back when you're moving to this beautiful BC Valley. So like I said at the top of the video, we're going to go over the 5 pros and cons of what it's like living in Kelowna, British Columbia. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. So we're going to start out with the pros, and then we're going to get into the cons, the things that might keep you away. And I want you to stick around to the end of the video because that last con, it's a big one. It's kind of what everyone is a little weary about when they're moving to this area, and I'm going to go over it in depth. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, starting out with the pros, and number 1 is going to be nature at your fingertips. Honestly, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I can't even think of a single area in Kelowna, a neighborhood, Kelowna, West Kelowna, that you can't walk out your front door and within minutes be on a hiking trail, climbing a mountain, swimming in a lake, and it's honestly truly incredible. I live in the Upper Mission, and every morning, me, my wife, my baby, my 2 dogs, we step out of our front door, and within not minutes, seconds, we are on a walking trail going around our entire neighborhood. And it's honestly that simple anywhere, you know. You're in the main Kelowna north-south area, kind of that downtown, you can go to Knox, you can swim in the lake, you can jump on the Mission Greenway that runs the entire length of the city. It's truly incredible. I've never lived anywhere where the access to nature is so accessible. So if you love being outdoors, you love being outside, I cannot think of a better place that would suit that kind of lifestyle. Okay, and pro number 2 is gonna be the wine culture. Now, you may not be a drinker, and honestly, I'm not a huge drinker. I didn't drink wine at all when I moved to this area, but the BC Valley is known for its incredible wines, all the way from Vernon down to Osoyoos and Oliver. This is one of the best areas in Canada for growing wines. And honestly, you can make such a fun experience out of it. Again, I didn't drink wine when I moved here. I had no interest in it, but you get with a group, you go on a couple wine tours, and you go to these incredible places. I mean, the wineries here, they're stunning. You got the vineyards, everything's grown for the most part locally. They make the wine in-house. They have some amazing food, and the views that some of these wineries are second to none. My parents were just in town for the weekend. It was my wife's birthday last Friday. We took the back roads here from my area down to Naramata, which is just on the east side of the lake from Penticton. And it's one of the most beautiful areas, I think, in the entire Okanagan. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It doesn't even feel like you're in Canada. It feels like you're on the rolling hills in Italy. Some of the wineries there, I mean, you can throw a rock, you can hit about 10 wineries. We were down there, we were having a couple drinks at a couple wineries, and the views off of the little restaurants they have there are, you know, they're breathtaking. It's incredible, and so many of them are like that. In Kelowna, we have the majority of our wineries here in the southeast region of Kelowna. You know, you have a handful of wineries there. Quite a few near my house in the Upper Mission. You have Summerhill, Cedar Creek Estates, St. Hubertus, but the majority of the wineries in Kelowna, West Kelowna, are going to be across the lake from me in the West Kelowna area. The Lakeview Heights neighborhood is called, and that's a West Kelowna wine trail where they have 20 plus wineries. Tons of great food. You don't even have to drink wine. You can go there for the food. They have some great happy hours. It's amazing. It's delicious. Some of these places are incredibly beautiful. And honestly, learning about the winemaking process and how they cultivate the grapes and the wine tasting, some of that knowledge is just so interesting to me, and it really hooked me and made me really interested in the craft. But hey, maybe you're not a drinker, you have no interest in wine. Pro number 3, The weather, that's gonna be enough to bring you here. It has to be the best climate in Canada. Our summers are long, hot, and dry. We don't deal with that brutal humidity like I did back east. I don't have to struggle with the 8+ months of winter. Right now, we just had a heat wave. The day my parents landed, it was 25 to 30 degrees every day. I mean, to be honest with you, for early May, that's a lot for me. I grew up, where end of May, even beginning of June, we'd have to deal with snowstorms. I'd go to soccer tournaments and the ball would be frozen to an ice chunk. It would knock you out if you tried to head it. Now, I'm not saying I miss that, but sometimes it can get pretty hot here. We had 2 summers ago, which there was a crazy heat wave through all of Canada, but it was 45+ degrees. That's no bueno for me no matter what, but we're not usually dealing with that kind of temperature. At the peak of summer, we have around 35 degrees, but again, it's a dry heat. So you're in 35 degrees, you jump into the shade, you're in a pool or something, it's so much more manageable. Go into the shade, it drops by 10 degrees. And we started our spring so early here. I'm used to these extended long winters. Beginning of March, it was spring. You could put shorts on from March on if you wanted to. And we had such a mild, we generally have mild winters here, but this winter was even more mild than what I'm used to. I don't even think we had a green Christmas. It was 0 degrees around Christmas time. We generally hover around -5 to +5 during the winter. We usually hit a cold snap sometime in the end of January, beginning of February, where it gets to -15 and -20, but that's about 2 weeks long. I'm used to dealing with -20 to -30 the entire winter. So honestly, living here is a breeze. We don't get that coastal climate where we get a ton of rain. For the most part, we could use a little more rain, but it's some of the best weather Canada has to offer. If you're not going to a tropical location, if you're not headed down south to snowbird for the winter, Kelowna is going to be your next best option. All right, pro number 4, and it's going to go hand to hand with the close access to nature, but it's the landscape. Everywhere you turn your head here, it's panoramic mountains, lakes, lush greenery. It's breathtaking, the scenery here in Kelowna. I remember, like I said, when I first moved out here, I picked a spot on the map. I wanted to live in BC. I didn't want to go all the way to the coast. I'd never even heard of Kelowna before, but I absolutely remember the feeling when I came just past Vernon and you really dip into the Okanagan Valley and you're on those mountain roads and you're coming down by Woods Lake, Kalamalka Lake, over by Okanagan Lake, and it's incredibly stunning. I remember getting butterflies in my stomach when I was driving in here because I just had never seen anything like this before. I didn't know a place like this existed in Canada. And I know you're probably thinking at this point, okay, he's really trying to sell Kelowna. I'm not at all. My wife and I will go for a walk. Like I said, we were just in Naramata and you're looking off one of these cliffs, overviewing the lake, looking at Summerland across the lake, looking all the way down to Kelowna, and it truly never gets old how beautiful this area is. And if you don't believe me, come here for a visit. Don't pack all your bags and move here like I did. Come here for a visit and check it out. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And the number 5 pro of this city, which some people may not like, but I love the fact that this city is continuing to grow all the time. And that's been a big issue in Kelowna. Kelowna has kind of run out of land that they can grow and spread out to. This area isn't like Calgary, where Calgary has Calgary, the main city. It has the small towns around it, Airdrie, Chestermere, Cochrane, and eventually Calgary's just going to keep sprawling and growing out, and it's going to kind of assume those towns, and it's all going to be just suburbs of this one big city. Kelowna really doesn't have that luxury. This is a huge valley. It's a mountainous region, and there's so much areas around Kelowna that's what's called in the agricultural land reserve, which means the land is protected. So moving land property out of the ALR is extremely difficult, which is a good thing. It's going to keep this place looking so beautiful with the green spaces and the parks and the forests. But with that, we kind of run out of room. And this is I think it's the second fastest growing small city in Canada, or it was last year. And with the influx of people coming here, we definitely ran out of space to sprawl out to. So what are we doing now? We're growing up. You have areas like right by me, the Mission at the Ponds. There's some new condos going in there. Construction's in full force now. As soon as the summer hits, you're going to see the downtown beach Gyro Beach area, the downtown core, all the new condos and high rises going up, which some people don't like, but you know what? I'd rather places grow up and keep all that nature surrounding the city than kind of sprawl out and overtake a lot of that. So I think it's a great thing. I think the skyscrapers look beautiful. There's some really cool buildings going up. You're going to see in some of these images. You're going to see a lot of it in the downtown and beach area, and all the rezoning that's going in these core residential neighborhoods is just to increase the density, putting in high density places, condos, townhouses, and I think they're doing a really great job, and I love to see it. Now that's good. So I've sold you on Kelowna. You want to come here. Just hold your horses. I want to go over the 5 cons, the things that might prevent you from coming here, or at least, you're going to have a second thought and you're going to want to get some more information on it. So let's start out with number 1, and that's going to be the homeless population. Now, when I first moved here, this wasn't as big of an issue. And I know that because I worked as a nurse in community mental health. So dealing with, the homeless population, it was literally my daily job. And when I first moved to Kelowna, it wasn't that bad. We have one of the main streets downtown called Leon, where a lot of the resources for that population are. And, there'd be people camping out on the street, but generally most people would be able to stay into shelters. It seemed like all of a sudden, a couple years into my career, I don't know if they called and they said, hey, Kelowna is the place you need to be. But we've had a massive influx of people moving to this area, not able to secure housing, substance abuse problems, causing homelessness. And the homelessness population has grown dramatically since I first moved here. Now listen, everywhere you go, I don't care what anyone says, any major city, especially a major city that has such a mild climate, you're gonna deal with this issue. Kelowna isn't above average or out of the norm. You go to Victoria, you go to Vancouver, you're gonna get the exact same thing. Now the city is definitely putting measures in place to try to help these people out, get them off the street with increasing its supportive housing and resources, but it's not an easy solution to fix. I definitely don't have the answers, but we kind of have the homeless population here now in a large camp in the north end of town, in the industrial area, we kind of call it, where all the new craft breweries are located, and it's quite big. Taking a drive down there the other day, I didn't realize how big it's gotten, but that's something, people definitely complain about this being an issue, and I'm not saying it's not. It's definitely an issue you have to consider when coming here, but it's such a popular destination that when there's an event going on, it's the middle of summer, the downtown is bumping. I don't think it affects your enjoyment of this city. I don't notice it as much. I don't work that job anymore, so I'm not boots on the ground every single day. I live in the Upper Mission. It's quite a ways from downtown. My office isn't downtown anymore, so I definitely don't see it as much, but I will say that's a bit of out of sight, out of mind. It's affecting me less because I'm not there, but it's increased some of the petty crime and stuff in certain areas, but I still think overall Kelowna is an incredibly safe city. And there's tons of areas that you can live in, tons of neighborhoods surrounding towns that are not affected by that population nearly as much. Moving on to number 2 con of living in Kelowna, British Columbia, and that's going to be the cost of living. Now we all know living in Canada that the cost of living has increased dramatically across the board, and if you're familiar with my channel or you've talked to anyone living here, what do they say BC stands for? That's right, bring cash. And Kelowna is no exception. Kelowna is definitely an expensive city. Looking at the 3 major cities in British Columbia, Victoria and Vancouver, a little less expensive than Victoria and definitely quite a bit less expensive than Vancouver, but by no means cheap. It's much more affordable in Alberta. It's much more affordable in Northwestern Ontario. You're looking at between $1.60 to $1.70 for gas right now. Rent, you're going to be looking from $1,500 to $2,000 for probably a 1-bedroom if you're in the downtown area, plus $2,000 for a 2-bedroom, definitely. It can be a little cheaper once you get to the suburbs or away from the downtown core, but especially in our downtown core, anywhere near the college, university, the vacancy rate is incredibly low here, so it definitely drives up the rental price. Cost of groceries, honestly, cost of groceries isn't absurd to everywhere else. I think cost of groceries just in general is really expensive. The cost of living is almost unmanageable at this point, but I find the rent, the gas in BC, and going out to be really expensive. You're going out for a lunch. If you have any drinks, you're looking at $100 bill for sure. God, even going out for breakfast and trying to stay under $50 is harder and harder each time. But you know what? If you don't drink, you're gonna save a lot of money. Because you know what? When my wife was pregnant and we'd go out to a restaurant and if I didn't have a drink, our bill would be incredibly affordable. So you know what, if you're going out having drinks, check out the restaurants that have a good happy hour. It's gonna save you a ton of money. But yeah, Kelowna is a more expensive city. There's no way getting around that. Now, in terms of real estate, Kelowna's average price for a home between condos, townhouses, and single families is gonna be between $700,000 and $800,000. Cost of a single family home is just over $1 million, kind of hovers around that area. And there are more affordable areas and more expensive areas for sure. And you know, you head to Vernon, you head to Penticton, you're gonna be saving anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 on the cost of a home. So there are options in order to get to this area, get into the real estate market that definitely may suit your needs. So moving on to con number 3, and that's going to be the traffic. Now, Kelowna never was designed to carry this much of a population. The main road arteries run straight through the city, going all across Kelowna to West Kelowna. You hit about 60 traffic lights, and when the summer hits and the tourism comes in, it just gets busier and busier and backed up. Our infrastructure is definitely having a tough time handling the influx in population, and they're trying to remedy it. You know, they're building out, they're widening roads, they're turning 2 lanes into 4 lanes, but that takes time, and that also causes more traffic, right? Because the summer hits, so does the construction. That's gonna back up traffic. But like I've said previously, if you live somewhere like Southern Ontario, Vancouver, Calgary, the traffic here does not compare to that. You avoid the bridge traffic on super busy weekends, a Friday, or you know, they definitely deal with the traffic coming into work. It's not that bad. Stay off the road during rush hours if you can manage it. If you can't, you're gonna have to deal with some traffic and congestion. But I wouldn't say traffic overall is a deterrent from coming here. I just think it's something you need to be aware about. You know, I'm in the Upper Mission. People do complain about the traffic funneling down from the Upper Mission into town. The most I've ever had to wait is about 10, maybe 15 minutes on the worst it's ever been, and that's only during certain times. I think people just kind of get used to what they're used to, and any change in their daily routine upsets them. But again, go spend some time in Vancouver. My wife was just down there, and she couldn't believe just on a normal day what it's like getting around town and how much worse the traffic is. So yeah, the traffic is bad, but it's not horrible. That moves us on to con number 4, and 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand, and it's a tourism. Now, you can look at this from different perspectives. I, for one, love the tourism. It brings a lot of liveliness and fun to this area. You know, Kelowna has a huge tourism industry, and it allows us to have a lot of events throughout the summer and the winter. You know, in the winter, Big White brings a lot of people to town. It's not crazy. The summer is definitely when you're gonna notice the influx in people the most. You know, it's already started now. As soon as the nice weather comes, you're gonna notice that bridge traffic getting worse and worse. And trust me, I'm leaving for May Long, and I already know how bad it's gonna be trying to get out of the city on a Friday afternoon. The biggest issue comes, you know, you're local, and I'm sure all locals feel this way. You have your regular haunts, you have the restaurants you go to, you got the bars you go to, and then the summer hits, and every restaurant, every bar has lineups out the door, and it can be really frustrating at times. You know, patios are packed, beaches are packed, but at the same time, it would be nice sometimes to have a beach completely to yourself, but I love when they're really populated and there's tons of people on there. It's just something with the energy and the action, and makes it a really fun place to live. So yeah, the tourism can be an annoyance at sometimes if you're trying to get around, you're in a rush. That's gonna be frustrating for sure, but it brings a lot of flavor to the town. New people are coming here, different cultures. It's gonna increase a different cuisine, different events that go on, and I overall think it's a great thing for the city. But you know what? If you want a really quiet place to live, you probably want to start looking at the surrounding towns like Lake Country, Peachland, down to Penticton. I mean, even further south. It's going to have the same beauty as Kelowna in the Okanagan Valley, but it's going to be a little more laid back, a little slower pace of life. So again, there's options for everybody. So I'm hoping you stuck around to this point in the video, because we're about to go over con number 5, and you know, it's probably the biggest deterrent for people living here, and that's going to be the wildfires. Now, I want to preface this with saying, because I have been thinking about this a lot, the wildfires aren't a Kelowna specific issue. You know, we've had some major wildfires here, the wildfire 2003, and then last year with West Kelowna and the north side of Kelowna getting devastated by that wildfire. And I'm gonna say this, and I don't want this to come across insensitive, but the reason you hear about Kelowna and the wildfire so much is because fires generally don't come this close to a city. So when it does, a place that's really populated like Kelowna, it's going to get a lot more media attention. It's going to make it a big deal, which it is. Trust me, I'm not taking anything away. Tons of people had to move out of their homes. Tons of people lost their homes. It's a very stressful time. Like during that time last summer, it was horrible, but there's wildfires everywhere. There's wildfires all across northern BC, northern Saskatchewan, northern Alberta. Right now, Fort Nelson in BC is being evacuated. There's wildfires raging in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I'm not taking anything away. It absolutely is something you have to consider, but it is not a Kelowna specific thing. It's kind of a Canada specific thing at this point. You know, we have a drier climate, the summers get super hot, and these wildfires can turn ugly very, very quickly. So a couple things you have to take into consideration when moving here and you're purchasing a property. You got to make sure you can get fire insurance. We're in fire season right now, so if you purchase a property, you're under contract, you got to lock in and bind that insurance 30 to 40 days out, just in case something happens. And when you're writing an offer, your realtor should know this, especially if they're in this area, you gotta write in a force majeure clause, which essentially, you know, you purchase property, you get an accepted offer, you have completion 2 months later, you're gonna be moving in. By that time, there's a wildfire in the area, you can't get insurance, that means you can't get approved for a mortgage, that means you can't complete. What this clause does is essentially allows you to extend your completion date by 30 days. And hopefully by that point, the fire's taken care of, you can get insurance and you can move into your home. If you're not doing this, you're putting yourself at risk for huge liability. So make sure you're considering that when buying a home. And again, you gotta think too, last year, I will say, was one of the best years we've ever had for fires. We had almost no smoke, no fires around us. It was a great summer. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't that 45 plus degrees. And then all of a sudden it can kind of happen out of nowhere. August hit and that wildfire started and it spread so quickly and it was absolutely devastating. So when stuff like that happens, you got to make sure you have a plan in place, you have a to-go bag, you know your way out of the city, and you know where you're going. So the biggest thing, and I thought Kelowna handled it so well, you know, they learned from 2003 and they had some great preparedness for the fire this time. And that's one of the biggest things. Be aware, download some of the apps that help you know where the fires are in your region and have a plan of action. So there's always going to be things that bring you to an area, you know, like the beauty of this place. And there's going to be things that kind of turn you off, like the wildfires. The most important thing I find is being knowledgeable about it, learning more, asking questions. That's going to help you make a huge decision. Because one thing's for sure, there's going to be tons of areas here that are absolutely going to work for you. But the most important thing, there's going to be tons of areas that aren't going to work for you at all. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to know a few things about you. What do you do for work? Do you have a family? Do you need to be close to certain amenities? What style of homes do you like? What is your lifestyle like? And once I know that, I'm going to easily find a few areas that fit you absolutely perfect. But in order to do that, you got to reach out to me. You got to call me, text me, email me, days, nights, weekends. And just know that I got your back when moving to Kelowna BC in the Okanagan. So make sure you reach out to me and make sure you check out this next video on the screen where I go into a lot more depth of what the cost of living actually is like in Kelowna. Thanks for checking out my video. My name again is Brett Boholij with Century 21 Executives in the Welcome Home team. This is my channel, Living in Kelowna BC, and I hope to check you in the next video.